Hey guys, I just want to say hello. I hope that you're well. This is going to be a very short screencast that just goes over a couple of the things that we didn't get to during Monday's class regarding the white paper. This presentation can be found at the end of the white paper module. I'm just skipping ahead to the research section. We've already previously gone over much of everything previous to this. So, just a couple of points for you to consider as you delve further into your research and continue trying to find really good sources for your white paper. These are just a few different categories of resources that you can look to. A lot of students try to find resources, especially in newspapers and magazines, to help establish the actual need or issue itself. This is something that you should consider doing if you don't have sources like that already. The second bullet point we've been spending a ton of time talking about, just making sure that you're delving into scholarly articles to explain why that need exists. The first two bullet points are really important for fully defining and sort of quantifying the statement of need. We talked a lot about the library and how important it is to help you find that scholarly resources. Please let me know if you need a quick refresher on using Quick Search. I'm happy to do that for you. We also briefly talked about Google Scholar and using that resource. If you use it through the library page, it will automatically link the articles that you find back to the Rutgers Library page so you can access them. The library guide is helpful in helping you kind of access different components of what you'll need for your research. Just a reminder that 50% of your sources should be scholarly. A lot of you may be really proud of the sources that you found for your annotated bib. They might feel like they're very relevant to how you want to solve the statement of need. So please feel free to use those sources as well. Remember, a lot of people have been asking me questions about the methodology section. I want you just to consider a couple of things here. When you're thinking methodology, you're really considering in which ways am I going to address my statement of need? You have to look to models of success that have been done and implemented before. You have to kind of sift through and use your own analysis to try to figure out what has been successful before, what has not worked. I also want you to consider how successful various attempts to address the need have been. You should definitely try to be evaluating how successful, if they were partially successful, and also try to think how this plan will affect your specific group of stakeholders. So all of this is really important. Remember, without a strong methodology section, you will not be able to create a solid plan. Everything in that plan section should be building out of the methodology section. Remember, the white paper should accomplish a few things, and these are just brief overview points, but it should briefly discuss your need or opportunity. You need to have data to support that your need or opportunity exists, that it's quantifiable, and also that it's urgent. You should offer a unique solution to that need. That's done through two components: your methodology section, where you're finding previous models that have worked, in addition to mentioning your plan. And that plan component is really how you'll synthesize those models that you've found. It should be generally addressed to a broad audience rather than a specific one at this point. As you move forward with your research, we will get more specific with time. Just, to talk about a couple of things here. Your final draft should really be about 900 words. Like I said, it's about a page to a page and a half. Don't go more than 2 pages single spaced. For your rough drafts, if you have at least 600 words, you're in an okay spot. As always, 12-point Times New Roman font, single spaced, 1-inch margins. You want to make sure that you're trying to edit and revise so that your paper is free of all grammatical and typographical errors. And remember, we're always trying to submit in docx file format. This is something that you need for class on Monday, but I will review where that information is. Your white paper should have a title. We briefly talked about this. You also want to make sure that you sort of section it off from an introduction, which should really focus on your statement of need and defining that. You should try to have at least 2 additional sections. A lot of students will sort of have a section that's focused on the methodology, and then a lot of times students will have a section called implementation or plan, but try to think of at least 3 ways that you can section it off so that you can have titles within the actual paper itself. Each of those little sections, they're like headings or subheadings, should have a descriptive heading, and you can bold those. So I know that this is difficult to read, but you can see here this says introduction. That's their first section where they're really talking about that statement of need. This one says research, which is very important just because that's all of the information for the methodology. And then the last section says the future, which is kind of implementation and how you will use the research to implement a plan. Remember, I'm just going to leave this up so you can sort of digest what gets a C. I would pause here just so you can sort of see the differentiation between the grading components. Same thing, I would pause here so you can see the differentiation between the grading components. This is what constitutes a B. And then lastly, same thing, pause here. This is what would constitute an A, and just spend a couple of seconds looking through each of these. Okay. Going back to our module, I just want to talk about a few other things. If you go to the first click, white paper assignment, it just reviews some of those important due dates. Remember, the rough draft, you're aiming for at least 600 words at that point, is due by the start of class. You will bring it with you, hard copy or on your computer is fine. We will peer edit in class and have a discussion about it. Your final draft will be due October 12th before midnight. This goes over just, specific components that you'll need. I'm going back to modules, just going over a few other things with you. The example of the white paper you had to read for homework, I just very briefly want to discuss this with you. So you'll see this student really decided to focus on social anxiety and its impact amongst college students. The only thing that's missing from this paper would be different ways to section it off. And I would actually have the first one maybe be introduction bolded, just so you're understanding how the problem itself is defined. You can sort of go through this, but you'll see in these first 2 sections, they are really discussing the problem at length. And you can see just by glancing at some of these parenthetical citations that there are a ton of research points and data points that they're relying on. I think this is a really excellent example that shows pretty thorough research on that topic itself. Here is where they start to talk about their methodology section or their research. So this is where I might have another bolded title that's just sort of differentiating. Above is my problem, where I'm talking about the statement of need and the issue at hand. Here is my section where I'm developing all of my research and my methodologies. I'm talking about different models. And then lastly, I might have a section here that talks about a plan or something about how this will be implemented in the future. So that's kind of how I would divide this. But one thing you should be able to see is that the statement of need is pretty fully developed. In addition to that, there is a ton of evidence that there are methodologies. The student even discusses the population or the stakeholders. And lastly, there is evidence of a plan. This is a pretty solid example, and I'm hoping that it helps you. Going back to modules, there's just 2 other resources that I want you to check out today. One is this example, and there are 2 right in a row. This one says methodology research activity, and the next one is white paper prep exercise. You can look at both of these, but they are both really excellent resources to help you find a decent amount of information and just work on prepping for your white paper. I'll just very briefly talk about each. The first one deals with the methodology section, and you can see how it's asking you to go through some of these questions. We will probably do this for a brief amount of time on Monday as well, but I want you just to sort of think to yourself, what sources do I have so far throughout my research that I'm thinking about using in my white paper? And I would almost go through your actual article and just prepare some of these responses, just because it will help you and get ready to kind of implement some of the content in that article in your actual white paper. Going on to that second resource, this one is called White Paper Prep Exercise 1. I'm just letting this load. This just kind of walks you through a quick activity on trying to help you find a few additional sources to what you would already have in your annotated bib. So I would definitely try to do this, because what you have for your annotated bib might really be useful and really accessible for you, but you still might feel like, I submitted the bib and I only had one methodology at that point. I know I need more. And you will continue to do research as the semester goes on. So this is a great resource to kind of help guide your research and help you find other sources. I would try to find at least another non-scholarly source that you're thinking is really useful. And then I would also try to find another source or two that are scholarly. You'll see here there are links to the library site. You can use quick search, which is what we've been doing. Or if you have a discipline in mind that's relevant to your topic, you can absolutely use an index or database to kind of delve into that topic a little bit more thoroughly. You can see here, there's just a couple of more things that you should be doing, thinking about the APA formatting, and also just trying to make sure that things are formatted properly. In addition to that, I really like number 4 because it's asking you to think about the article that you've chosen, at least one or two that you're really interested in. After you've skimmed and read them, summarize the most interesting point. Try to do this in 2 sentences and consider how it will be useful to your paper, or, information that you can sort of draw out of it that will really help you argue your point in your white paper. And then it says in 2 to 3 sentences, describe the value of the source or how it's relevant to the project. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, I will be available through email during our class time. And if you need anything else, please let me know. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you all on Monday. I hope you have a lovely weekend.